welcome to Everyday Board Games, here back with another review, this time of Gloomhaven from Cephalofair Games.
What's interesting about this one, caveat, this is our copies, this is your actual specific copy, because mine's elsewhere. We bought this, so there.
Yeah. You could be absolutely honest with our review, and of course we take our bias out of it with our reviews anyway. If you're not familiar with our channel, this is the Everyday Board Games. We have a podcast, we have a whole YouTube series, Instagram, all that stuff, and we do reviews now. And normally these games are sent to us, so we're slightly biased because no, we're not. We take our bias anyway out of it, but this one is literally owned by both of us.
Yes.
In fact, you taught me how to play this copy.
Yeah, specifically, I took my wife over, and she watched Harry Potter with your wife while I taught you this game with our friend right. Jim, friend of the podcast.
That's right. So, the way we do our podcasts, or not podcasts, but the way we do our reviews are very simple. We have 5 criteria that we'll break into more detail later, but we have ease of play,
replay value,
meaningful choice,
game immersion,
and art and production. And we will break those down, each of these 5, and tell us our review on that. Now, if we think that it meets that criteria, me and Daniel can each give it a single point. We call those Daniels here, because Daniel and Daniel. And it can have up to a 0 to 10 Daniel scale on how good the game is.
Yeah, and so for people who are not familiar, this game has been out since about 2017, I want to say. Gloomhaven is a dungeon crawl campaign-style game.
Yep.
So what I really like about this one, though, is that choices you make throughout the game closes some sections off for you, but opens sections off for you. There is a little bit of a legacy aspect of it because you are stickering your board and stuff like that. So think Dungeons and Dragons, but tabletop. This is where it is. It also mitigates dice rolling. There is some luck based off card draws, but your whole purpose of this game is you're playing your cards out of your hand. That's also your life points.
Yeah, the combat system is a really different one, and we're going to get into more detail as we come on. So let's start with our first criteria, and that's ease of play.
And so when we're talking about ease of play, we're talking about simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, the likelihood to get to the table, i.e. the mechanism or the theme, or is it easy to learn, understand, and or teach? I'm not going to belabor this point whatsoever. As much as I love Gloomhaven, as much as I think it's a great game, this does not get an ease of play for me for 2 reasons. It is not easy to teach. No. And it's kind of hard to grok. Once you familiarize yourself with it, it's a lot simpler. To the point, they had to come out with a prequel to this game that teaches you the gameplay in the first 5 scenarios.
Yes.
Which, by the way, is fantastic. And,
it's a great tutorial.
Yeah, and we'll probably do a review of that game later. The simplicity and the familiarity of the mechanism, it's a dungeon crawl game. People are going to be fine with that. They could probably get to the table just because of the theme. It's distinct enough from Dungeons & Dragons where you'd be like, ooh, that's kind of cool. The other reason why it won't get it to me is the likelihood to get to the table. And the main reason, we only have the box lid here because it is a very heavy game. But when you turn it the other way, real quick, look how thick that is going to scare people away from the game. And so it's more than less likely to get to the table because of how thick that game is. And it's chock full of stuff. So yeah, that's why I won't get a Daniel for me. As much as I love this game, this part of it alone will scare people off.
It is a 22-pound box. Like,
yes. No
joke. It is absolutely frightening. At the time, it was one of the bigger games that are around. So again, for the same reason, it's very involved. It's definitely worth the time.
Yes.
But it is not getting our ease of play point, neither for me as well. I'm not going to belabor it anymore. It's not easy to play.
It is not.
It's a complicated
fun game. It is great. The mechanism could get it to your table, but the other things are going to scare people off.
Yeah, exactly. I got to bring this up because we have live chatters on when we do some of our reviews. One of our reviewers actually said this is a 5th of their weight. So, needless to say, that is not an easy to do. Now, replay value, I'll be starting this off. So replay value talks about the length of time and scaling well, how much does it play per player, and the player count that it can play. Minimum number of plays for the full experience and the expandability. And this is whether we talk about current expansions, future implied ones, or ones that have been confirmed. I'm not even going to belabor this. There's 100 scenarios in this game alone. Like, you're not going to play them all in one sitting, of course not. That would be 100 scenarios if you did. But even if you don't, you might replay it, and if you do, then you're playing more than 100 scenarios, even if you take branching path. That's obscene. This has a massive, massive, like, replay value involved with it. It has no expansion. Well, no, it has one expansion.
Two, actually, technically.
Two expansions, technically.
Because it has the solo expansion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and then the Forgotten Circles, I think is what it's called. But then it also has two spin-offs. It has Gloomhaven, Jaws of Lion. 3 spin-offs now. Buttons and Bugs, and it also has Frosthaven. So, I mean, you have a lot of gameplay. It's going to do it. The only thing it wouldn't get for me is scaling well. It does take long, but for a game with this experience, you're expecting a long game anyway. So, this gets a Daniel for me.
So, just to go on what you were saying on the length and time and the scaling well, parts of it are long, parts of it are not. The biggest part of it is the setup. That is a big thing about the length.
Yes.
They've mitigated this recently with
some of the earlier expansion, or some of the earlier scenarios takes longer to set up than it does to play.
Yeah. Some of the scenarios are some scenarios are quick, some scenarios are long. It just depends on how you're going.
Yep.
So minimum number of plays for the full experience. There is a lot in there. What he didn't get to is if you're playing it as a campaign and you want to play the game, but if someone doesn't show up, they actually have many cards that can set up just a game for you, basically a scenario just for your group to play, which means you can level up your characters and stuff like that. So it has even that set in there, not to mention the 100 stories in there, not to mention the expansion, which I think adds another 30 or 40 stories in there. It's a lot in here just for that box. And there's a reason why it's 22 pounds. They threw everything in the kitchen sink. And so, mentioning about the ease of play there, if you notice Frosthaven just slightly above it, that is just slightly larger than Gloomhaven on its own. So that tells you how much is in these boxes. So it gets a big Daniel for me on this one.
All right, next category is meaningful choice.
And when we're talking about meaningful choice is how it impacts on other players when they're playing the game. The depth of strategy, tactics, or skills for yourself as well as other players. And do arbitrary choices in AP make an impact on the game in a negative way? This one is by far the biggest Daniel out of all of the stuff here, except for maybe one more. But the fact that you have to be smart, and there is some limited communication, but I found when it comes to the limited communication, if you're playing your character for a long time before they retire and stuff like that, everybody knows what everybody's numbers is when they say something like, I'm going to go middle of the road. Okay, he's going to be probably playing his 40s or 50s because you have something called initiative order based on your card play. And sometimes, what I really like about this game is sometimes you want to make sure you use your higher number. This way you go further back in the initiative order. Or you want to do your lower number to go first in the initiative order. But when someone, like one of my wife's characters, she's playing and she's like, I'm going to go really fast. Well, I know which one she's probably going to play, so maybe I don't want to go that high in the initiative order. Or one of our characters is playing a support character in a sense, and we need some healing. And she's like, all right, I am going to go fast because something, I got to do this thing. And you're probably like, okay, I need to go middle of the road because if she's going to heal us, I need to get going here. So it is fantastic just by the choices as a group. Not to mention the way that some of the scenarios are built. You got to kill all enemies? All right, let's destroy all enemies. You need to get to the end of this map by the certain turns. All right, run. So the choices you got to make on that one. Do I attack this guy to clear away or just keep going and get out of here? So, yeah, big Daniel for me.
That's right. And this one, I do agree with that as well. Impacting on other players, you definitely have an impact. It does scale based on the number of players. Certain monsters do or don't come out. So the scenario is still true. Crazy strategy. Knowing what you have in your hand, when to play it, which ones to play, and what combinations. And then even when you're resting, doing a short rest, like which card you're going to lose, that's still huge as well. Because you can lose a little bit more I forget what you lose to redraw the card or something like that, but stamina or something like that. I
You
forget
don't
what
lose
it is.
stamina. You lose a card.
You lose a card, but
Yeah.
you can redraw it.
Yeah.
Or choose a different
Yeah,
one.
I think you
whatever.
have to discard it to purposely.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
something.
and then some cards just like a one-time use. Like once you use them, they're gone.
for
right?
that round,
If you
yeah.
use them, that really big one. So that's gonna take a lot of effort. There's so much going on to it. It's really a smart game, and I give it a big Daniel as well.
All right, game immersion.
All right.
And when we're talking about game immersion, is the game fun to lose? Does it have player interaction, table talk, role playing, that sort of stuff, and memorable moments? And another one, this is not the one you were thinking about, or I said I was going to give it another big Daniel. This is close, but for me, game immersion does get the Daniel because it is fun to lose.
Yep.
I like the puzzle aspect where you're trying to, oh man, I lost that. Let's start this campaign again because there you can play permadeath. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
You can just start that section again. The player interaction, there is a lot of table talk. You're discussing what you're going to do on your turn. You are getting into your character because I named Mike Craghart, which is one of the base characters, so you know.
Yep.
I'm not saying any spoilers. I named him Craig, and I'm like, well, Craig's not going to do that. No, he's going to go over here and do this thing. You get into your role-playing aspect of things. And there is memorable moments where you're pulling off a scenario by the skin of your teeth. You're sitting there like, whoa, kind of thing. So yeah, for me, this is another Daniel. It's fantastic.
Yeah. For me, so this one I'm less enthused about. I agree 100% with the memorable moments because I still have a moment in this where my son, went full hog in there as a wizard, like right in the thick of all the monsters and couldn't fend them off. And
He Leroy
absolutely
Jenkins you, huh?
He Leroy Jenkins me. It was hilarious. But as far as the player interactions, I don't feel like I'm a character delving into these dungeons more than I'm focused on just like which cards am I playing, when am I playing it, and the thing is like with the amount of setup that this base game has, this has like the tiles that you build out those, and the amount of preset and upkeep that you have to get into just going to a scenario that could absolutely just like hand your butt to yourself. I don't think that's a fun experience personally with the amount of upkeep you do. I mean, obviously this game is trying to simulate something like a video game RPG or a tabletop like Dungeons and Dragons thing, and that part of the thing is like, wow, I made a bad choice in all this. Like when you lose and you die in a video game like Skyrim, for example, you just well I reset and now I'm back into the thick of it. Now I know what I made the mistake of done. With this, it's like, all right, now I gotta figure out like why did I lose? Okay, now I figured that out. Now I gotta set this whole thing up again. And it doesn't equate in a board game scenario for me. That I think it takes you completely out of the thing, and that with as much as I love the combat system, and I think it's a brilliant combat system, that's all you're doing hundreds of hours again and again and again is just whittling through your cards. I don't think it's immersive, personally. I'm not giving this a Daniel.
Yeah, that's fine. That's your choice. You're wrong, but that's your choice.
I knew you'd say that. I mean,
no,
I knew you were going to disagree, but
no,
it's not immersive.
Yeah, my thing is, I think you need to play more of the campaign.
I knew you were going to bring that up too. No, because
for you could get into your character. You actually build your character. You can add stuff to it to make it more realistic based on your specific.
So what
stuff.
mechanisms does it change with my character other than new cards, right?
No, because you can actually modify the cards too.
Sure, yeah, but you're still like you have a choice of cards. You're picking one or two cards to play. It doesn't change the mechanism. It's not immersive.
Really?
I'm sorry. I don't feel like a battle. I feel like I'm strategically playing cards. It was for me. Art and production is our next option, and I think we all see where this is going.
Art and production, the art, the pieces and components, and the graphic design. As we mentioned earlier in past podcasts and stuff like that. Graphic design, we're both colorblind. It's very important that you do something good on this. The only thing I will kind of slightly knock Gloomhaven because they get the art. It's really well done art. They get the pieces and components. They're fantastic.
Yep.
Your characters are minis where you have standees for everything else out of the base box.
Sure.
You could have done the most recent crowdsourcing where you can get miniatures for everything. No, thank you. That's too many pieces. I don't have enough storage here.
That's unnecessary.
And then the graphic design, the rulebook's fine. It's large for a large game. It is really heavy on the iconography. That is my. But for the size of this game, it kind of needs to be there. And what they're good about, they give you a reference sheet. You get your reference cards for everybody that's playing the game. So for that alone, I give this a Daniel. The reference cards, the art was great. The production value is really through the roof with this game. And to think, when it came out on the original crowdfunding, it was only $100.
Yep.
With inflation, it's about 150 if you find it in retail, which is still not bad for everything you get in this.
Yeah, I agree. There's only one knock, and it's a different knock that I have, and you kind of briefly brought it up at the beginning, as you say it's kind of a legacy game because you're adding stickers to a board. Those stickers are unnecessary. It could have been just a sheet of paper where you're marking, can I go here, yes or no? And if they included 5 sheets, you could do it. Oh, you could do this 5 times and get a refill pack. Like, it didn't need to have stickers to a board. And no, don't get me wrong, the stickers are good. The board is good. The problem I have with it is that people then claim it's a legacy game. It is not a legacy game. It's a campaign game. And when you unlock stuff, all you need is a checklist. Like, that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
There's no permanent alterations that you can't mitigate with just a checklist.
And the thing about it is, you could buy a reset pack to reset everything, and then the cards that you take out, it just tells you to take them out of the deck. You don't destroy them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying is that because you're adding stickers to a board, people claim it's a legacy game when it's very much not. That's my only really problem with the production. That's it. Everything else, brilliant production.
It's a fantastic, well done game, and the fact that Isaac Childress put a lot of his heart and soul into this game, and
you can tell.
For the most part, it was all just him. He had some other designers help with scenarios and stuff like that, but this was his brainchild. This was his baby.
Absolutely.
And he did a pretty fantastic thing because the way I'm looking at it here, it got 7 out of 10 Daniels from Everyday Board Games.
Yeah. So if you like our reviews, tell us why we're wrong. Comment down below. Anything helps us to blatantly argue with us. That's totally cool.
We were just arguing with each other.
Yeah, exactly. Check it out. Check out our other reviews on our YouTube channel and all of our other mediums that we're on. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.